Tokusatsu, taking the form of many shows including Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Metal Heroes. And today, a group of fans come together to review it for you as Toku Secrets.
Hey guys, Rizwan here from Anime Secrets and Toku Secrets. We're coming at you today with a podcast of very interesting proportions from Twitter. So, over the last couple of days, fans have been asking Simon Bennett, the head writer for Dino Fury and soon to be Cosmic Fury, a lot of questions about um, the state of Power Rangers. Why do we do things in a certain way? Was stuff filmed at this location or that location? Just, general fan questions. Well, one question in particular has kind of spurred a lot of conversation on Twitter, and I thought it'd be cool to get the Toku Secrets cast to kind of weigh in and discuss it, give the pros and cons and all that good stuff. But before we get too much ahead of ourselves, let me do a quick intro because I'm not here alone. I have Nathan and Anthony. So if y'all want to say hi real quick. That's not quick.
What's up, guys? Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry.
I was like, you're there, right? I'm not talking to myself. Y'all didn't leave me all of a sudden.
Well, I was waiting for Nathan to say something, so I was like, okay, let him go first, and then I'll say something afterwards.
Yeah, I was like, I know it's my first time in forever leading one of these podcasts, but God, guys, was I doing that badly?
Nah, I was bad on that. That was badness on my part.
Yeah. But anyway, now that we've done our quick intro of the cast that's here tonight, the question on everyone's mind in Toku Twitter: why is it that Dino Fury has had less unmorphed civilian fight scenes against the um against the foot soldiers of the bad? And Simon Bennett gave a pretty good answer to why from a logistics standpoint. The quick and dirty answer is if he dedicates more time towards the Rangers and unmorphed civilian fights, then we're detrimentally affecting production in that we're not able to have more Ranger content, like the Rangers morphed and doing their battles and their plot development. And when they're filming, the other crew that they have two crews. The other crew will have to default to do more side gags or things with like the Buzz Blast crew in terms of Dino Fury, or like Victor and Monty and Ninja Steel, for example, or Ben and Betty from Beast Morphers. So they get more screen time, and that those kind of scenes, while they're funny and they're good for the kids, they kind of detract from the story, and that's something. At least our group here on Toku Secrets, we've been saying for years, we don't truly care about some of the side characters we've gotten lately. I mean, yeah, there have been some good ones, but some of that time could have been used for more plot development and character development. So I personally agree with that answer, and I can respect it. But there's been a lot of backlash, a lot of discussion, and I figured it'd be best to have a good open campfire discussion about it. And I know Nathan has um, some history he wants to give on the unmorphed civilian fight, so I'm going to hand it over to Nate and let him go with it.
Yeah, so to kind of first off, I don't even know what people are talking about. Like they're all of a sudden making a big deal about there not being any civilian fights. Because the funny thing is that like, I mean, I've been looking through all this, and so here's how kind of like unmorphed fights kind of started and then evolved over time. So for the entire Zordon era, there were unmorphed fights. I would probably say that like if you're watching a Mighty Morphin season 1 episode, there's like a 90% chance there's going to be an unmorphed fight there. Um, you know, and early episodes it was like kind of sillier stuff like, oh haha, they're they're fighting on a playground and they like use the swing set to like hit a putty or something like that, or Billy's running away and he like goes down a slide to like evade one of the putties. Haha, funny. But then like by the middle of the season, and especially when they were using the GU2 footage, it was a little bit more like, straight up martial arts, which made sense because all 6 of the original actors had martial arts training, or in David Yost and Amy Jo Johnson's case, it was more of a gymnastics training. So they were a little bit more physically equipped. They still did it in season 2. There weren't any unmorphed fight scenes against the Tengas in season 3, unless you want to count their Ninja Ranger mode as unmorphed. Like, it's kind of one of those weird things between Ranger mode and civilian mode, if you know what I mean. No one more fights in Zeo, as far as I can remember, which made sense because they kind of established that the cogs are a little bit more difficult foot soldiers. Although Hulk and Skull got a unmorphed fight scene against the cogs, but they're not Rangers, so they're always unmorphed. Turbo, they did it a lot. Even when the new team took over, they did it in space a little bit, I think. I can remember at least one scene when they fought Quatrons unmorphed.
Yep.
Beyond the first episode, I believe is what you mean, right?
Yeah.
You mean third episode, right?
Yeah. They didn't do now at this point, starting with Lost Galaxy, they've started to kind of hire actors that are not as physically trained in martial arts as the original actors were. So unmorphed fights aren't nearly as common. I don't remember any unmorphed fights in. I remember 1 or 2 in Lost Galaxy, but it wasn't really. It was more of like the Rangers struggling. Same with Lightspeed Rescue. Like you had them fighting unmorphed in the first episode where they struggle, and then when they're struggling in the last episode. Eric gets a couple of unmorphed fight scenes in Time Force, which makes sense because because Dan Southworth is also a stunt actor when he's not actually acting. No unmorphed scenes in Wild Force outside of the first episode. Final episode. Now, unmorphed fights were brought back in Disney, but there's a catch to it. The Disney era was infamous for having a lot of civilian powers, so the unmorphed fights aren't there to show off all these cool martial arts. It's more so that they can apply special effects, and this is especially the case. It not so much in Ninja Storm. There's like maybe 1 or 2 Ninja Storm unmorphed fights. Very common in Dino Thunder, SPD. But again, they add special effects. So like, Connor uses his super speed. Jack can walk through walls to attack. Crybots and Sky can put up force fields. There wasn't much in Mystic Force. They did it all the time in Operation Overdrive, but again, they have civilian powers. I will say that I think the unmorphed fights were a little bit better choreographed in Dino Thunder because, they were still physical martial arts and they didn't use their civilian powers all that much. And hell, in Ethan's case, it's still martial arts. You're just adding some effects to his punches, so it's not really that big of a deal. It was pretty bad in Operation Overdrive though, because these actors aren't really well trained. The green screen effects, like when Mac is picking up something really heavy, is terrible. You have to have laser sound effects every time Dax jumps up into the air because that's what Power Rangers was doing. Like by the time Mystic Force came out, action scenes in Power Rangers in general were just, when it was original footage, were just terrible because they always added laser sound effects every time the Rangers punched someone. It was just.
I thought it was kind of hilarious. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
And from
And,
behind the
I find it.
one
I
thing I
know most
want to
people
add,
don't like it, but I think it's more interesting though.
yeah, one thing to kind of throw in there, I personally think SPD had better fight scenes than Dino Thunder in terms of like unmorphed civilian fights.
Yeah, I think SPD's actions was pretty good. I think the only one that really suffered badly from the civilian power special effects was Operation Overdrive.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at it, like, I've been watching clips the last 2 days on Twitter because literally everyone in Toku Twitter has been posting their favorite unmorphed civilian fight scenes. And the trend I'm noticing here really kind of drives home your point, Nathan. It's all SPD, it's all Dino Thunder, a little bit of Ninja Storm. Not a single Operation Overdrive clip I've seen yet. And I have not seen many from the Zordon era. So I think, in my opinion, I mean, at least in part, I think the complaint might also have to do with the civilian powers that have been missing since Operation Overdrive, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, so kind of looking back at it historically, you have 3 real eras, well, 4 eras of the civilian fight scenes. So in the Zordon era, up until like, I'll give it until Lightspeed or Time Force, honestly, because there were a couple of more civilian scenes that I found, but those were more focused on getting kids excited about martial arts and being active and getting out there and learning karate, whatever. And I mean, look, when I was a kid, I knew everyone had watched Power Rangers. Like, after the first couple episodes, we all started saying, I want to do that. I want to learn karate. That was the motivation for a lot of kids in my age group back then to learn martial arts, is because they saw it on Power Rangers. But
And in Mighty Morphin's case, there were literally like they almost kind of turned it into a montage because they had 3 songs that they made specifically for fight scenes. And I remember this because I had like 3 Mighty Morphin tapes where they had music videos for those songs.
Mhm.
The 3 songs
Yep.
were Fight, We Need a Hero, and 5 for 1.
yeah,
So
exactly. And I mean, so when we go on to the next era after that, we enter Disney. And yeah, they have most of the seasons, excluding I think 2 or 3, that have civilian powers. Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD Overdrive. RPM didn't have it. Mystic Force, they were magical, so I mean they don't really need to have a civilian power to go with it. They already had magic. Um,
not Jungle Fury either.
yeah, Jungle Fury
No,
didn't have it either.
they just have spirits, but that's just isn't really count as power because like it's something they already
Do that
had.
in, they could do that in Ranger form too, so it doesn't count.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, that's the other eras, like the civilian powers. Then when we go back to Saban in the second ownership phase of Neo Saban, um, we have some unmorphed civilian fight scenes. I mean, I clearly remember Troy in a couple of scenes where he had some unmorphed fights, and definitely with Dino Charge because um, Coda and Tyler, their actors actually have a lot of background in acrobatics and martial arts, so they were all about doing stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I think the production team and the producers of those seasons played to the skill set of the actors that they brought in and let them do it. But for the most part, the the formula started changing a little bit. We didn't have civilian powers, and we didn't have a cast of people that were well known for doing martial arts or caring about martial arts. They were more regular kids than anything else. And they weren't teenagers with attitude. They were just teenagers at this point. And the message here is more, they're trying to relate these characters back to the kids more and say, hey, these are normal everyday kids that were given a chance to do something extraordinary. Go for it. Believe that you can be one of them. Um, and I think as you progress into Hasbro, yeah, I mean, there's some pretty cool fight scenes with Beast Morphers that I remember with crap, what is Jacqueline's character name? Zoe?
Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe.
I remember a pretty good fight scene with her and Devin. They were, fighting and trying to fend off the foot soldiers. So I mean, they had it, but it wasn't as prominent. It wasn't as much of a focus.
I
So
think
the
the last
actual,
season to have prominent Unmorphed fights, oddly enough, was RPM. RPM had a lot of
Yep.
Unmorphed fights.
oh, absolutely, yeah. I
But
mean,
now, to be fair, their Unmorphed fights weren't always the best because unfortunately it had a lot of shaky cam and all those Unmorphed fights. But
yeah,
it's still Unmorphed fights and it's cool. And none of them had civilian powers.
yeah.
So
Now, one thing to kind of note here, Nathan and I have seen everything that's been released in Canada for Dino Fury up until now. So for the record, that'll be up until episode 17, Things Unspoken. But I'm gonna throw out a blanket ban on us talking about anything specifically that happened in Dino Fury Season 2, Part 2. Just so that we don't have to put a spoiler disclaimer at the beginning of this video, because we don't need to. But with that said, I do want to address the specific concern that is being brought up on Twitter by the fans to Simon here. Yes, we've had very few unmorphed civilian fight scenes in Dino Fury, but the thing that we have to all remember and understand, this is probably one of the best Ranger seasons we've had, period. Um, the stories, the character development, the the things they're doing, it's all been hitting home in a really good way. Um, I've gone from being a hype little kid again, watching some episodes, to literally bawling. Well, not bawling my eyes out, but like definitely kind of, emotion filled, got tears in my eyes kind of thing that I haven't had since maybe Kendrick's dying in Lost Galaxy or the Time Force finale. But it's been a while since they've really pulled at those emotional heartstrings. And I have to believe part of the reason we're able to experience this kind of charged emotional stuff is because Simon and his crew are catering and tailoring Dino Fury more towards building the Power Ranger lore, creating a good cast of characters, giving them something to work with, giving them all something that we can kind of feel for them about. At this point, I mean, without saying too much again, I feel something for 5 of the 6 Rangers at this point. That's not something I've been able to say in quite some time. And if that's the if that's what it means for Unmore fight scenes to be kind of limited and only brought out when necessary to the story, like Simon said, then I'm all for it.
we shouldn't pretend there's not any good seasons that don't have prominent Unmorphed fights. I mean, like I said, like you could count the number of Unmorphed fights in Time Force on one hand.
Yeah. And Time Force is one of the best seasons out there. And I
Mhm.
mean, I think In Space is the other one that doesn't have as that many.
So yeah, I definitely second what Riz said.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing that I kind of want to comment here, I get that Simon Bennett has made himself available on Twitter to answer questions. He's been entertaining the fans and giving the behind the scenes info as he can without breaking NDA. And he's done a phenomenal job. He's answered so many cool questions, given us a lot of info that I found was really cool about the development of Dino Fury and what he is saying for Cosmic Fury without saying anything. I'm excited. He's doing great work. And he's doing a great job catering to us in the fan community by even doing this. He doesn't have to get on Twitter. He doesn't have to get onto forums and start giving information out. He could be locked up in a Hasbro and just do what he wants and not worry about what the fans are saying on Twitter and social media. But he's there, he's talking, he's trying to engage with us. So honestly, it's in our best interest as a fandom to not go off and attack him like that. I mean, I've seen a person out there that said Simon should be used to this kind of thing because in my job, I get criticized for everything that I do. And I'm like, yes, we all get criticized in our jobs for doing the work we do. And, you know, there's a certain standard we have to be held to for any job, not just production of a TV show, but anything really. I mean, engineering, science, teaching, they all have a standard. But the difference is when you're probably getting critiqued at your job, you're not being insulted and bullied. You're being given constructive criticism and feedback to help you grow and develop yourself. Not just, you took away our unmorphed fight scenes, you suck. Why are you doing this to us? You're hurting the fandom so much and all that kind of stuff. That's, to me, that's garbage.
Hot garbage.
Yes.
I mean, would you rather have? I mean, just for this question, guys. I mean, would you rather have Bruce Kalish, aka the guy who literally didn't do anything to fight Disney when they were constantly stripping away from the show to the point where they didn't want to give him money to hire an actor to play the Omega Ranger, so he said, okay, I'll just make him a ball of light and give him a voice actor. Or, the same guy who didn't try to fight Disney when they were cutting the funding for the episodes. Like, Simon Bennett is doing a lot more for Power Rangers than, honestly, I would say these last few executive producers. Like Bruce Kalish, okay, he gave us some good stuff, but he showed way too much deference to Disney, which is not a good thing because Disney did not care about the show. And then you have Jonathan Zacher, who was so lazy that he literally just decided to copy the Sentai note for note. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't real. I don't think people realize what they have with Simon Bennett.
Yeah.
Like, he's not perfect, but he's trying new things. Can we just not say so many hurtful things about him? Like, come on, guys. Like, let's not turn
Like,
into one of those types of fandoms.
Like, you can disagree with him, but like, just don't be like, an a-hole, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I understand tradition. I understand that we had this brand Bible that dictates how things have been done in the past. But times are changing. This is not the time to be clutching to the past and only wanting that, because you're going to start sounding like the Star Wars fandom. Oh, we want more of the original trilogy. You get the original trilogy and the sequels. Oh, I hate this. I want the more stuff like the prequels. But you just told me a little while ago you hate the prequels. No, but I want more of that now. Like, you're never going to be happy no matter what they do. You have to just appreciate that we have 30 years of a franchise that, quite honestly, me looking at this from a critical, technical standpoint, should not have gone beyond the Zordon era. It should have died long ago because of how bad things were getting for them. But they pulled out a really strong franchise that will probably go on well after our time.
Yep.
And I mean, Hasbro, I think, understands what they've got themselves into. And they are doing stuff different. And the things they're doing different is helpful. I mean, we have our first LGBTQ plus couple, and they're amazing, and they're doing great. I mean, that was never done before now. We're getting characters that are more relatable. It's not just cookie cutter, like we had with Neo Saban with the Megaforce cast. I mean, Troy and the rest of that group really had no personality to speak of. They were kind of monotone, they were kind of boring. And that's not because of the actors, that's because of bad writing by Saban. All they cared about was making the toy sales. But reading on Twitter and seeing Simon Bennett go off about like how He wants to do right by the franchise. He wants to give a good story. That's super freaking rare to have from something like this. I mean, he could easily just say, "Oh, we have Sentai footage. We have a Sentai plot. Let's just cookie cutter it and not worry about it and just sell the toys and make money." But I think he understands this franchise spans multiple generations of people. Yeah, the target audience on paper is kids, age kindergarten until whatever. But he's recognizing that the older fans, like the three of us here, and I'm sure a lot of you out there listening to us, we're not here for the kiddie things that we got in Ninja Steel with Damani Victor fart soaps. We're here for substance. We're here for more lore. We're here to expand what we grew up with. And quite frankly, part two has delivered all of that and much more than I expected. When we released the embargo on it, and I can talk more freely outside of a podcast that is tagged spoiler, I'm gonna do another rant where I can explain myself better about that. But dear God, I mean, once it comes on to Netflix and y'all see what he's done, y'all, I have not been this excited about the franchise in years, probably close to a decade.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I mean, I've grown up from August 28th, 93, with Day in the Dumpster until now. I've been a fan nonstop. I haven't been excited in quite some time because things have been stale. They've been dull. But these guys are bringing in a fresh of breath air now.
Yeah, I can definitely second what Briss is saying because I've also seen the episodes he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I plan on watching the rest of these those next two whenever I get a chance.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
they were out because I didn't really like. Do you guys talk about it beforehand or like I'm just like just didn't check the chat when I had the chance.
wait, what?
Like, if you guys talking about the episodes beforehand, like, or were I just didn't read the messages earlier.
You didn't read the messages in our group chat earlier, bro.
That's probably what happened. Yeah.
We've been chatting about this all day.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
but
was at work, so I didn't.
but that's neither here nor there. But I think I'm gonna close the podcast here with a heartfelt, sincere thank you to Simon and the crew of Dino Fury. Wow, that was a slip. And the cast. I didn't get to go to PMC this year. I regret it heavily, but watching the YouTube clips of the cast and the production team out there at PMC talking, interacting with the fans, we're very blessed to have such a loving cast that care for the franchise and for the fans, and they want to give back so much. I mean, I've seen clips of Hunter Dino at Morphicon literally getting excited that two of her fans got engaged at PMC. Like, she couldn't stop squealing over how excited she was. Same with I think her name was Tessa, Izzy's actress.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were both excited. The Beast Morpher cast, I mean, they were so cool to watch interaction with fans, and they were down to earth. They're not stuck up. They're not there to flaunt that they're Rangers. They're there to celebrate that they were part of this legacy. And all of these different groups in the last couple of years, they're all the same. Dinosaurs cast, Beast Morphers, Megaforce, they all have a fantastic cast that love the fandom and they keep giving back as much as they can when they can. And that's rare to say that. I mean, you don't see us saying that for Star Wars. I mean, yeah, Mark Hamill does his thing every now and then, but they're not as invested as these guys are in their franchise, in my opinion. So I want to close with a sincere thank you to all the different people who make this possible for us.
Absolutely. I also extend my thanks to them.
So thanks for listening in. This has been episode 58, I believe, of Toku Secrets. You can catch us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. You can also find our podcast for download at animesecrets.org. And we will be signing off now. We hope you guys all have a great night, day, afternoon, whatever time it is when you're listening to this. And we hope you guys all enjoy, and may the power protect you all. Have a good night.